The Gamrombo Switch controllers featured in today's review were provided courtesy of Gamrombo. I love cheap controllers. They are great for letting additional people jump into a multiplayer session, and if they break or get lost, they don't break the bank to replace. The problem with cheap controllers is that they are usually lacking in function and features. So let me introduce the Gamrombo Nintendo Switch Controller. This cheap controller comes in a nice 2-pack and is compatible with Switch, Switch 2, and PC. All necessary functionality is included, even gyro, but unfortunately it just falls short of my minimum expectations, even for something this cheap. The Gamrombo Switch Controller doesn't come in any sort of retail box. Inside were the controllers, a user manual, and 2 USB cables. These Switch controllers are certainly more aesthetically unique than anything I have reviewed in a while. The overall shape is fairly standard, but the shoulder buttons raise out of the shell like the spikes on Batman's cowl. Ergonomically, it feels okay, and the texturing on the handles does a lot for the overall grip. Finding an ideal placement for your fingers to reach the shoulder buttons and triggers can take a minute, but once playing a game, I never had any concerns with the design. I will note that when my wife and kids used it, they felt it was harder to keep in their grip. But for the positives of the controller first, the thumbsticks have great resistance and the traditional Switch coloring. The thumb cap texturing is also among my favorites out there. Unfortunately, everything else just highlights the cheap nature of this type of controller. Buttons are all loud, but thankfully have a good actuation range. Shoulder buttons and triggers likewise follow suit. The center buttons have a satisfying click when pressed, but are also loud. The inclusion of a turbo button was a nice addition. The placement of each function button is going for a stylized approach, but tends to just have buttons get in each other's way during the heat of gameplay. The D-pad design, however, bugs me. It sinks into the shell when pressed, and you will be pressing on the shell when attempting any diagonal inputs. A line of blue LEDs sit at the bottom of the face to indicate player number while in use on the Switch. Being a cheap controller, it feels cheap in its materials. Plastic on the front and back looks unfinished like a prototype pad. It comes in on the light side and there is quite a bit of button rattle if you shake it around. Thankfully it is firm and will withstand wear and tear without issue. I can forgive the cheaper build quality of a controller since it is meant to be a cheap controller, if it had the chops to make up for it with gameplay. The Gamrombo again just falls short of this mark. Things started pretty promisingly with testing on the Switch and Switch 2. The pad pairs easily to the system wirelessly, and as expected, it can wake the Switch, but not the Switch 2 from sleep mode. It shows up as a Pro controller, allowing for full button remapping capabilities. There are no rumble bugs with the N64 GC NSO apps, and motion feels good in supported titles. Latency even feels similar to a Switch Pro controller, with only a few instances of an extra frame of delay noticeable during my testing. Things come apart for me when it comes to actually controlling games with the sticks and D-pad. There is a considerable dead zone on each stick that makes initial movement feel sluggish. The experience gets worse with the presence of cardinal snapping on each axis. You really have to fight for precision with these sticks. Outside of menuing, I have not had a good time using these sticks in games. D-pad doesn't fare much better with it sinking into the shell. Cardinal movements are okay, but once you need to start relying on quick motions and movements, the misreads begin to pile up. I know I am not great at fighting games, but this pad doesn't help. While the Switch experience almost reaches the passable mark and could easily be improved with a few tweaks, the PC experience is horrendous. Latency on PC through Bluetooth is unusable to me because of its sluggish latency. Even on a wired connection, you are often experiencing up to 2 to 3 frames of lag regularly. Combine this with the dead zones and cardinal snapping issues, and you could say goodbye to precision. Playing Battlefield 6 was hilariously bad with how much you have to fight the sticks to attempt to get your shot. The D-pad, again, is just a letdown. On a brighter note, the battery gives you a modest 12 to 15 hour charge, ensuring multi-day usage. Rumble is also nice and impactful, and you can tune the intensity if you desire. Turbo functionality also works and is always nice to have on hand for mashing sequences. With a few tweaks, the Gamrombo Switch controller could be a great option for anyone looking for cheap pads to add players in party games. Sticks need to have a smaller dead zone to make initial movement feel better, and cardinal snapping needs to be eliminated. The D-pad should be raised so it does not sink into the shell for a better overall feel. Latency also needs to be boosted to hit parity with the Switch Pro controller, which isn't a high bar. On PC, latency destroys the controller. Everything feels sluggish and Bluetooth is just not usable. This needs to be addressed to hit a stable minimum of 125Hz on the polling rate. The aforementioned stick and D-pad issues likewise remain. Though, even with these changes, I would never recommend this pad for PC players. As much as I love cheap controllers, they need to at least work for me to recommend them for anyone looking to pick up some party game pads. The Gamrombo Switch Controller just falls short of this mark for Switch thanks to its lower latency and problematic thumbsticks. On PC, the pad provided me with some of the worst gaming I have experienced in years. Until these issues are addressed, I can't recommend this controller for any use case. Until then, check out the GuliKit ES or ES Pro for an incredible low-cost entry option. Thank you for making it to the end of today's review on the Gamrombo Switch Controllers. Again, they're just so close to being a great recommendation for low-cost party controllers, but the cardinal snapping and dead zones really kill it for me. And the exceptionally bad latency on PC just absolutely destroys it for that entire use case. Like, no. Sorry, no. But again, thank you so much for watching today's review. I hope you have found this informative. And yeah, I really got nothing else to say about these. But here at the end of the video, just the usual favors to ask. If you haven't already, please be sure to hit that thumbs up, thumbs down button, depending on how much you like this one, as well as hitting that sub button and notification bell so you can see when new videos go live on the channel. Loads of content always come your way, and I'd appreciate having you here. And for anyone interested in further helping support the channel to keep it going and growing, check out that join button here on YouTube or the Patreon link in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Every little bit helps, and we are super grateful to everyone who has helped us over the years. But until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, y'all stay awesome, keep on gaming, and we'll see you all back next video.